be sent out to everyone. We're going to go ahead and let in the remaining individuals. And Gwendolyn, are you here with us?
Yes, hi. Good morning,
Hi.
everyone.
Yes, this is our new person, Gwendolyn. So, Gwendolyn, this is going to be an observing today. And if I miss anything, Gwendolyn, like if someone asks a question, if you can just make sure that you let me know at the end. Like if someone asks something in the chat, I might be doing the course at the same time. So if you can just write down their questions for me, and then that
Yeah,
way
sure.
I will, after we've completed everything, then any questions I miss, then you can just say, hey, Miss M, this is what we have. Sound good, Gwendolyn?
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to get started. I ended up catching the flu over the holiday. I was like, what is it? I hadn't had the flu in years. I didn't even know how to take the cough syrup, and I'm probably, you can probably still hear it. I was like, what in the world? I mean, literally, I was totally surprised. So there is some truth to, as you get older, I guess you're not what you thought you once were. And I mean, I was laid up for like about a week. I mean, literally out. So God is good. I'm ready to go. He made sure I was sick for that week, and I'm here with you guys today. So that is the good thing. So we're going to get started with the middleman and Alicia. I am always so impressed with you. You are doing the thing, girl. I mean, you are doing your business, and here I am so impressed. I just have to give you a shout out to that because you're here all the time, making sure, even though you're working. So that is impressive. And let's see, let's see, at least it wasn't COVID. Yes, at least it wasn't COVID. It kind of felt about one and the same, but no, it wasn't. So let's go ahead and get started with the middleman. uh, we're doing a special class on the changes on the 19th, which is this Thursday. I think we have it at 2 o'clock. We'll confirm that to you. It'll be in the recording that we send out to you. We're doing a special on all the changes for the LLCs. So any changes for the LLCs, we will be doing that on Thursdays. You'll receive the recording, quite a few changes for what you need to do so you get what really is going on with that. That'll be done on Thursday. You'll receive that information. And then we've got a couple other special classes going on for business taxes, credit. We have our Dibbs specialist is going to join us next Thursday, or no, next Tuesday. We've got a couple of guest speakers that will be speaking with us. So some fun things, and believe it or not, um, are there changes for corporations as well? There are a few changes. We're going to go over all of the upcoming changes for any S corps, LLCs, mainly they're for LLCs, limited liability companies. So we'll make sure we have that for you guys. If you can't be there, no worries. We'll, do the recording out. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation for the middleman and then go over what we need to do. So let's see. Okay. Welcome again. I am your instructor, Mrs. M, and this is module 4, specifically for the middleman. Now, this is an important one. This is what I did and made well over 6 figures just getting started. I did this while still working my 9 to 5. That's what helped me. So I started out when I started doing real serious government as a subcontractor. I actually worked with someone. They were the prime. I was a sub, worked beautifully, and I loved it. So I have nothing but good things to say. One of the things I love about it is anyone could do it in any place. So if you don't have any contracts in your area, this is a great place where you could do contracts. Now, the key to the middleman is 2 things: pricing and finding the contracts. So you've got to be really great at both of those because you want to make sure that your sub has what they need and you have what you need. So let's take a look at what we need to do. So first, understanding what it is and what it's not. The middleman is simply subcontracting. That's it. You're the prime. The contract is in your name. Where the confusion comes in a lot, which we're going to cover in great detail, is how do you know what to do with what you're trying to sub out? So if I've never done IT, can I reasonably sub out an IT job? The answer is yes and no. Depends on you. That's the question. Pretty easy to be able to do some subbing for maintenance and things like that. But can I win a nursing contract and sub out either 100% or a portion of it without me having no prior knowledge of nursing? People do it every day, all day, but it's something that you have to know what your limitations are to know how well you can do it. Because if you do not do this process well, you will lose the contract, and the contract's in your name. So it can make you very wealthy, or it can lose you a lot of money, depending on how you do it. So let's make sure we do it the correct way. So let's first look at what governs the middleman. So once and for all, we know what is the myth and what's the truth. So the FAR 13 and the 52.219-14 is called subcontracting limitations. Subcontracting limitations state what you can sub out and what you can't. Anything over the threshold of 250,000, you would have to put in a percentage, and then it goes into what the percentages are. So the limitation rule is so that we don't have pass-throughs. When I first got started in DC, I had a lot of companies come to me and they wanted me just to be the face, not do anything, just win the contract and give it to them. That's a pass-through. That means I have no skin in the game. I'm not monitoring. I'm not adding anything. I'm not doing any supervising. I'm just winning the contract and giving them the contract. Well, in the DC area, that happens all day, every day. I see it happen all the time. So if you want to put yourself in that situation and end up going to jail or possibly being fined, I see it all the time. And it does happen. So the pass-through just simply means that a large company approaches you and asks you to go in and win a contract. And these contracts can be up to $7-8 million. You win the contract because you're a small business. They can't. And then they do all of the work, have you do nothing, and you get the money and give it to them. So that's what a pass-through is. Large entities will contact you and ask you to do that. It is not what we started the middleman method for. The goal of the middleman is for several people to come together and to team up, where you may have expertise in one area and I have expertise in something else, building the relationship where now I have past performance in an area that I never would have had past performance in. So it's designed to help us grow. But in anything else, there's always going to be ways to get around it, no matter what. We just want to know the legal way. So that way, no one on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube can tell you what is what. You want to verify it for yourself. Then that ends the conversation, whether or not you can do the middleman or you can't. It's basically finding another company to do the work for you. How can I determine what an appropriate managing mentoring fee is? If the contract is in your company, then you're going to have certain key elements that are going to be provided to you in the contract. They may ask you to provide a quality assurance form that you fill out every week on who is doing an inspection over the software or how many nurses are arriving for a staffing job. The contract will state. Now, we're doing a mock contract for this module. So we're going to do one together, and that's our homework. And then we're doing a full-fledged contract proposal in module 7 and 8. So that way you're going to see what a specifically for middleman, because when you're adding the pricing for middleman, it's different than if you're doing all the work yourself. So the fees would depend on all of your indirect costs, which we're going to talk about in our live today. Now, After we've gone over it, we know what exceeds it, what doesn't, and we know what rules apply. Now we want to look at the type of contracts there are. There's the service contracts, the supplies contracts, the general construction, and the specialty. Each one of them have a different amount you must put in, and this is the key, for the total value of the contract. So if the contract total value will always be the one base year and options. Most contracts are going to have one base year. That's the first year. That's what's called a base year. And your options could be 2 years or 3 years. So that is what we look at when we talk about what is a total value of the contract. So in our exercise, I think I did the total value of the contract for $200,000 with a 1-year base and 3-year option, which makes it a total value of 200,000. Now, that's where you get to decide. Now, if that contract were for $1 million, then I would have to put in half of everything, half of the supplies and half of the labor. 50% split down the middle. That's how you come up with the percentage. 75% is for construction, 85% is for 50-50 for supplies and for service. Then 75 is for construction and 85 is for specialty trade. Everything else, total value. The only time it does not apply is for a similar situated company. 8A can 100% provide a sub for every part of the total value of the contract. Hub zone, small disadvantaged veteran, and what is the other one? Woman-owned small business. That's it. That's all. Anything outside of there, you must apply the legal means of making sure that you split the contract with the percentages you have to. Okay. So one of the biggest questions is, how do we find the work and how do we vet the subs? What paperwork should we check to make sure they have? And how do we make sure they're not going to lose their contract? So our homework for number one is just understanding what is the middleman, what it's not. And I want everyone that's looking at doing this, your homework for assignment number one for module one is simply sending us a statement that you have read and understood the FAR. That's your assignment for module one. Are there any questions on module one before we go into module number 4, lesson 1, before we go into lesson 2? Any questions on what the FAR is? How do you find the FAR? We will attach that FAR. We'll just highlight it for anyone who can't find it. And then that's going to be your homework. So any questions on what the homework is? We decided to go ahead and put the homework inside of the modules. That way you know exactly what the homework is because it's listed. And we will, of course, list it again in the weekly today that we send out with the recording. So let's see. What factoring banks, lenders lend out amount for half the contract? That's something depends on your credit. There's not a one fit all for any banks or factoring that's going to factor in. There's a lot of moving parts for factoring. You have to sign the contract over to the company that's doing the factoring. So if you have a government contract, you have to sign it over to them. They want to be the person that gets the funding and they give it to you. Factoring takes about 60 to 90 days to get started. And there is a lot that goes on to your collateral. They've got to make sure that they have something once they're sending you the money. So there are a lot of things that go into factoring. That'll be one of the things we teach in the special class, but that has a lot to do with your credit. Your personal credit is what's based on your business credit. Until you get started, your personal credit is going to dictate your business credit. Once you establish your personal and your business, you're going to be the guarantor for your business. And then they're going to start looking at you individually. That we will cover in a special class for all of our Crack the Gov code. We will do a live class for everyone that paid in full. And those that did not, they were on the payment plan, you will receive the recording. So there's certain things that now we're starting to divide off with certain specialties that you receive for our full paid students and for our payment plan. Still receive the same thing, you just don't receive it in the same manner. Let's see. And if you could write those questions down for me, Gwendolyn, and then I'm going to continue on and get back to them so we stay on course.
Yes, sure.
All right, thanks. So now let's go into okay, I'll come back to that. So let me go ahead and get out of this one and then go into our lesson 2. Okay. Make sure we answer the questions before we conclude today. So, what are the moving parts for the middleman? For products, we're going to do Dibbs. We will have a special guest speaker for next Tuesday. Next Tuesdays will actually be a 2-hour class or an hour and 45 minutes. We'll have an hour with the gentleman that created this Dibbs platform that shows us how there are people making $3 million a month on Dibbs. Not the norm, of course, but it is done. He will show us his latest platform. Those of you, once again, that are my full paid students, you will receive a discount of a couple of months, and then you will receive also a month at no cost. So we'll go over that in detail. We'll send that information to those that it applies, that it's applicable for, but everyone will have access to the actual information. It'll just be, once again, depending on how you receive it. Locating contracts. Hands down, the easiest way to locate a contract is by positioning your company as we always see when it comes to locating contracts. Now we're getting into strategies. Every time you want to set up your business to do well, you have to have a strategy. That's the only way it works. Only way. Until you come up with a strategy that you decide that works. And how you decide that is I like to do with the go, no go. We normally give you something to work for 3 weeks. That's your ramp up, your implementation stage. Then the other 3 weeks is to see if it's working. 6 weeks is enough time to determine if something's working or not. If it doesn't work, we pivot and we come up with our next strategy. So our first strategy is focusing on 3 or 4 ways to find middleman contracts. The first way we're going to look at doing that is, of course, going into 3 areas: FPDS, SAM, acquisition, and USA spending. Those are going to be your 4 areas. SAMs are current, any current bids. FPDS are previous. Now, FPDS and USAspending.gov have similar information. Just depends on which platform you like the best. And acquisition.gov is all about what's coming out. We're in Q1, so we want to look at what can we do when we graduate on January the 30th. Our focus is, how do we find a contract between January the 30th and we want to count within 90 days. So if someone could, Gwendolyn, if you could tell me what date 2 weeks after January 30th would be something like February 13th. So within 2 weeks, we want to find our contract. February 13th is our first target. That's our first milestone. And then 90 days after January 30th is what date, Gwendolyn? If you could look that up for me and let me know when you get a chance. So what do we want to look at when we're looking at the middleman and what's going to work for us? Do I have enough money to pay payroll? I did not. I did not have enough money. I did not have enough money to pay payroll. So I needed to have someone that I was going to split the cost with. So that's the first thing I decided. Can I afford to pay an employee so that if I'm doing that contract, I've got to pay an employee every 2 weeks? Can I afford that? No, I can't. So that means I need to find a contract that I can sub out at least 100%, which is what I found. That's what I found when I could sub out 100%. So that means it was under 250,000. How much time do I have? And what other resources, equipment, supplies, all of that matters. That's the first way I'm going to look to see. Sorry, I was not able to catch that. Starting what date? So the starting date, Gwendolyn, is going to be January the 30th. 90 days is what date after January the 30th? That's the date at the latest we want to look at winning contracts with class 104. So what date? Let me know what date that is, Gwendolyn. January 30th, 90 days after that is like what, March? Something, I think April, something. April, May. So January, February, March, April. Yeah, so we want to say April 30th. So 90 days after January should be February, March, April. So April 30th, thank you, Gwendolyn, is our date. February 13th to April 30th, and April starts to get into the second quarter, which makes it even easier. So time, resources, capital should be our first go, no go. Do I go towards this contract because I'm adding up these three areas? I'm writing it down. Go, check. Go, check, no go. Go, no go simply makes it simple. You take the emotion out. Can I do it for this amount? That's our first strategy, go, no go. Our second win is to determine who is buying what we have. And then we're going to look at the subcontractors and the various ways we're going to find them. So let's go over this. And then we're going to actually share our screen. So let's go to the screens and look at where we are. So when we're looking at the very first thing for finding a contract, we're always going to go to usaspending.gov as our second strategy. Where do I go to find a contract? I get so many people say, okay, Miss M, I finished the Crack the Gov Code course. What do I do next? If you ask me that question, that means you weren't paying attention. Because from module 4, every module, every time I talk to you, I'm going to recap, what do you do starting module 3, which is disaster relief. If you're looking at doing disaster relief, and if you're looking at doing the middleman, these are going to be the only two ways these are going to be the minimum of the maximum ways I'm going to talk about finding contracts. This is it. The very first thing you want to do is go to usaspending.gov. It's always going to be your starting point. That's your North Star. So I don't know who's buying my stuff. I'm going to usaspending.gov. We're going to look at it in two ways. If I have no idea who's buying anything I want to sell, and I want to do the middleman, how do I know what to choose? Well, my first suggestion would be to go with something you know, or someone you've already worked with, whether in commercial, private industry, or in some other job or some type of communication where you already have a relationship, where you know what kind of work they do and you can trust them. If you do not know someone that you've already worked with, or they can vouch, or you've got a good feeling for them, and you don't know what the work is, I wouldn't recommend it. Because if I don't know anything about software, I'm not going to even know if you're answering the bid right. I'm not going to even know that unless I can 100% trust that this company is an outstanding company and I know they know what they're doing. So all I have to do is send them the scope of work, and I can trust that they're going to be able to answer the questions. And then we'll get into what we need to know no matter what we're doing. If I can't answer that, I'm not going to go with something, a NACS code that I know nothing about. I'm not. So if I want to go with the NACS code that, let's just say I'm interested in, I always go with facility support services for several reasons. One, it's a lower hanging fruit. It's some place to get started without a lot of equipment, supplies, and experience. Two, there are a lot of people that can do it. A lot of people can do security. landscaping, janitorial, floors, carpets, windows, construction, cleanup, all of that. So it involves a lot of different things. So that means you have a better chance of being able to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in the keywords, and I'm going to do this over and over and over till it ends up being second nature to us. Where do I start? The very first day I complete this course and I've graduated. What is my next step? I know I'm selling this. Now I need to know. Now the next step is who is buying it? We've got what we're offering, and now we need to know who is always going to purchase it. So we're putting our keyword and we're looking for a sampling of 4 companies or 4 years. So we're not going to include fiscal year 2024. We don't have enough data yet. 23, 22, 21, and 20. And then we're going to simply hit submit. That's it. Whenever you want to know what your filters are, you have 4 active filters. Only your time filters. That's it. So we're going to hit our category and we're going to write down on a piece of paper who is buying what we have. Department of Health and Human Services, Social Security, Department of Defense, VA, and SBA. These are my 5 buyers. I don't need to worry about anything else because I know who's buying what I'm looking to sell. What is my next category? Now that I know who's buying it and I've written it down so that I know, my next category would be then to uncheck every one of those. And now I'm going to filter and drill down even more specific. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down to specific year, fiscal year 2023. I'm looking for different information now. So this is strategy number 3. Okay, I've given you 1 and 2. Now let's look at strategy 3. What is the award type? I'm interested in contracts. Who is the agency? Well, I've just gotten a list of who my agencies are. I'm going to put in my number 1 agency, which is going to be health. Let's put in department. Let's see, I might be able to put it in without putting in all that. Department of Health and Human Services. I don't need to think of anything else because usaspending.gov has just given me who has spent the most money in the last cumulative 4 years, and you can even go into it and look at how much they've spent. That's how detailed you can be. So now I know who has spent the most. I'm interested in contracts. That's the awarding agency. That's who I'm interested in because the normal awarding agency is normally going to be your funding agency. Now I can put in my location. Where am I looking for these contracts? So I can be specific. I'm not going to put that in. I'm going to put in the type of business that fits what I'm looking for. I'm going to go with general business and then small business. I'm a small business. I'm making under, 19 million. That means I'm a small business. I can choose any of the other filters. My suggestion, choose 1 filter at a time. Then I'm going to scroll down to put in the award amount. I'm looking for under $1 million. And now I've put in all the filters I'm interested in, and I'm going to hit submit. And when I hit submit, I'm going to get information that I'm looking for. So what I'm looking for with this is time. I've got the period, the award type, the agency, the recipient, and I'm looking for the award amount. I'm interested in the time frame this has occurred. So I'm looking at 1.40 billion specifically for my agency. That's how much they've spent. That's how much they've spent in the years. Now let's break it down into quarters. Just like we've always said time and time again, the number 1 time that they spend the money is in what quarter? The 4th quarter. The 4th quarter is almost always going to be when they spend the most money. Then we want to look at the month because there may be a month in there that they spend in the 1st quarter. So if we look at the months, we still can ascertain that the month of September is the busiest month. But let's take a look because we're not concerned about September. We want to know what can we do now. So when is the next most popular month? We can see that December wasn't that bad. We can see the month of February is pretty good. And as you notice, March or May. So as you see here, March isn't bad. It goes down a little bit in April. It kind of dips back up in May, stays about the same. And I'm going to be real specific with writing down the dollar amount because now I have a strategy of knowing. Now, the least is October. October 2022 was the least amount because it was right after the fiscal year. So I'm going to benefit going even further up. Now, let's look at what we've learned here. I know what I'm offering. I know who's purchasing it. I know when they're purchasing it. Now I need to connect with the person in this agency because what I'm looking to do always, always, always is to find the path of least resistance, which means I'm not doing any bidding. We're going to focus on proposals in Module 7. Right now, with the middleman, we're still going under the radar with the 250, where we can be awarded a contract and you can be awarded a sole source. A sole source is my favorite. You can win a sole source for $7 million. That contracting officer, and we're going to go into that in Module 7. So Module 7 is a big one. A sole source means that the contracting officer can justify. Now, normally the way they're going to justify it is if you've worked for them on a smaller project. You've done a smaller project, a large one comes out, and they can justify that no one else can do this job, and we're going to give you letters of how to justify your sole source. There's like 5 or 6 ways, and we're going to give you that template so that when you find a contracting officer and they will come back to you and say, hey, I want to be able to justify this. Can you give me something that might make you stand out? What do you guys think that is? Let me get a little bit of a questionnaire here. What do you think? You can either say it or put it in the chat. Is what I've been talking about since we've been together that's going to make you stand out? What is it that we talk about all the time? Anyone? Signature system. That's right. Talked about that together today. Absolutely. Your signature system is automatically going to make you different because no one has it but you. You've created it. No one else has your signature system. So in your justification for your sole source, when you get these letters that talk about things you can do, I still get you guys that send me information without your signature system. We need to work on our signature systems. And today starts our one-on-ones. I've got quite a few of you ready for your one-on-ones today, and you'll be calling in for your one-on-ones. You can talk about anything for the 30 minutes you're with me, but make sure that we talk about something that's some meat there because we want to really get you up and going. But the number one way that someone can give you $1 million contract, and when I say $1 million, that's the total value. So $1 million isn't a lot if you look at the total value might be $200,000 a year. And then you divide that 200,000 into what it is a month. Now, anything is great. I just don't want you to become fearful of $1 million contract. We want to throw those terms out there readily and easily so we get used to that. Our mindsets start to not get shocked when we hear 7 figures and $1 million and things like that. Yes, Reggie.
You were saying that if the contract's total value exceeded 250, then you had to put in the percentage of the work depending on the type of contract it was. But you just mentioned that if you got $1 million contract, that exceeds the 250 threshold that you can sub 100% of the work out. So in that $1 million contract example that you just cited, does that mean I would have to put in a portion of the work? Or are you saying because $1 million contract is roughly 250,000 per year, would that qualify as meeting the threshold standard each year? And
so this is what we want to make sure that we understand. Anytime in the GovCon, GovCon, government contracting. So we'll say GovCon because we want to be familiar with the lingo. Anytime we say anything in GovCon, in the GovCon world, total value is always what we're looking at. So if I say I want a contract of $1 million, that's the total value, which means, yes, it would exceed the threshold. I'm trying to let you see that if we break it down per year, a milli is not over 5 years is not the same as a milli of a total value of 5 million. And I'm doing a 5-year contract and I'm doing a milli a year. Does that make sense? So we always, so if I win a $250,000 contract, I've won one for, let's say, 50, 60,000 a year. So we're always speaking in terms of total dollar amount. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so for say you had a contract with the total value, including option years, of $250,000, then that contract could be 100% subbed, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So just start thinking of total dollar value. So that means $1 million is in our it's called a base year. Our first year is always called the base year, and then we have our options. I've normally seen a base year with 2-year options. So the total amount is a 3-year, and they always say base year and then subsequently the years. So our total amount that we're doing for our exercise is 250. No, I think I said 200,000 with a 1-year base and a 3-year option. So that means it's a $50,000 a year contract. And if we divide that, it's like $4,000 a month. That's manageable. And somebody can do the whole thing. Okay. So any questions at all on what the next steps are to find out what we do after we decide we want to do, because now we're deciding on our method. This is where we get to the method. Do I want to do disaster relief? Do I want to do disaster relief as the middleman? Do I want to do the middleman with my NACS code? Am I doing the work if I win a contract? Or am I going to put some in there as well? Or am I looking to do the middleman completely? This is where we start to decide. Now we're going to do Dibbs, and then we're going to look at just finding contracts outside of the 250, $1 million, 2 million. So that way we cover every way we can look at winning a contract. Okay. So now, are there any questions specifically on usaspending.gov? Anything?
Yeah, I got one more little quickie.
Sure.
Say your agency allowed up to $750,000, which was the limit that you mentioned the other day. Would that be considered a threshold that I could also sub out if that particular agency said you can go up to 750?
Yes, there are very few agencies that extend that threshold, but yes.
Okay.
Because it's up to the threshold. And the thresholds change every year. That's the thing about government. It was, I forget what it was, 200, now it's 250. There's some agencies at 750,000, but know that a sole source means you don't have to bid and you can be awarded a sole source. But of course, if it's over the threshold, you would then have to put in half. Yes, Mr. Hartway.
Yes, I just got a question about I'm just having problems understanding the base year and the option years. How's the total factor in? And when you say base year, then 2 or 3 year option, how does that factor into the total cost?
So if I say that, let's look at an example. Let's go to FPDS. So if I go to FPDS, which is my second favorite place, and I come here, and this is another place where I would go, and I think I put in transportation services. So I'm looking now to show you what they mean by total value and options and the whole thing. So if I come here and I'm looking at doing the middleman again or disaster relief, neither one of those matter. My goal is to narrow down who is buying, whether it's USA Spending, Acquisition, SAM. They're just one is a current one is forecasted, and one is previous. That's all. So now I'm always going to put in my filters to narrow it down. So I'm going to put in first the dollar obligation. So I'm going to put in $100 up to $250,000. I'm going to hit search. Now I want to narrow down the dates. I'm going to put in my ad, and I'm going to go down to date signed. And I'm going to narrow it down from 2023, January 1st to current. And then hit search. Now I'm going to take a look at this contract. Every one of these that says view is an actual contract. So I'm going to hit view, and let's look at what we see. The first thing I see here is Andrew Chow is the one that approved, which is normally going to be either your contracting officer specialist or your KO, which is contracting officer. Then I'm looking at the procurement identifier and the agency. That's the award. Now I'm looking at the date. It was signed and it was when it was completed. Now I'm looking at base and exercise option value. And then we see base in all options. That means that the total value of the contract was $3,897. Whenever someone is telling you, they're always going to give you the total value. They want you to know this. The government will allow you to work 1 year, and maybe you're doing just okay, but they will not exercise the remaining options if they're not happy. That's why they discern base, which is your first year, and then the total options, which are your sequence years after that.
Okay.
So that's what that's about. And when you're bidding, you want to include your inflation and other things in there, which is what we're looking at, because we always want to include all of our options. Whenever you're doing a contract, which you guys are going to see in our proposals that we do, because we're going to do an actual proposal together, you're going to see that they lay out all the years. They want, when you complete that contract with that government, they know exactly how much you're charging them for every year you're working with them. The average contract is 1 base year.
Okay.
And normally 3 options. So you're normally looking at a 4-year contract. Least is 1 base year and 2 options. That's a 3-year contract. I don't see a lot that's 1 base. I've not seen a lot of base contracts. Just 1 year. If anything, I'll see a base and maybe a 1-year, option. That's the very least. Most of them are 3 and 4 years. That's one of the benefits of government, long term.
Okay.
Now, I can see what agency awarded this contract. I can see who won the contract. I can see their address. I can see their business type. And the most important thing is I can come down to the bottom and I can see that this contract is lowest price technically accepted. Does someone want to tell me what that is? What does that mean? LPTA, get used to that term. LPTA means what? What's it mean?
Lowest price technically accepted.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that no matter
lowest fair market value price, the lowest price acceptable market on the market, the lowest price that's the lowest price that could be that they'll accept.
Right. So what they're looking at when they say that is that if Susan gives me work and because with government, it'll be real specific. They'll say, we want you to lay the carpet from corner to corner. Corner to corner, instead of we want you to lay the carpet. It means corner to corner. Susan says she's going to use 3 layers underneath the carpet padding, and she's going to do this. Her price is $25,000. The contracting officer specialist sent it out to bid. to their estimator. And the estimator told them what the scope of work has to be. You have to have legally 3 pads underneath the carpet, yada, yada. So if we send that to Susan and Susan writes down she's going to put 2 pads and her bid is $25,000, is that the lowest technically accepted bid? Yes or no?
No.
No,
Why?
because she's giving 2 pads and they asked for 3.
I'm sorry?
Because she's giving 2 pads and they asked for 3.
There you go.
So
They
she
don't
didn't-
care if you give them $10. They want to know, are you doing the scope of work? So lowest technically accepted is you're accepting all the scope of work. So that's what that is. Lowest price technically accepted. Now, there are some bids that everyone's pretty much doing the same. A lot of service contracts, that's pretty much what it is. So the price is the only thing they're factoring. If you do a lot of facility, not facilities, but janitorial, that's what you're going to see. A lot of the janitorial bids doesn't require a lot of technical or anything like that or specialized equipment. So what are they going to go off? Price alone. So be ready for a very low margin. Now, the other areas are when they're looking at other technical things. Those are going to be price and other factors. So go into your NACS code knowing what is going to be the norm. Are you in a NACS code where price is going to be one of the most important factors? If that's the case, go into it knowing you can't expect. I get people looking for $1 million contract in janitorial with no past experience, and they're asking them to do that, something everyone can do. So let's be realistic of what our expectations are. So that's why some people may want to get their feet wet with a LPTA. I want you guys to start knowing an LPTA, lowest price technically accepted bid. They already know it's going to be low, but that's what they're going into it already knowing that. And I'll answer that question in just a second, Norman. So we know now that this would be the type. Now we know the total amount on this is $3,000. They probably did it themselves. Yeah. It was probably a one-time project. As you can see, total amount, they paid total amount. That's how you can tell that there was just, that was it, one time. So there was probably not, and a BPA is a purchase blanket agreement. So we'll talk about that when we get into our actual proposals, because there are a lot of different terms we want to make sure you understand. This is the way, one of the ways I am going to search for a contract that I can do an LPTA. Lowest price technically accepted. I want to win the bid. I want to get some money in. The goal is to have what you pay for this course recouped in the shortest amount of time, which is 2 weeks to 90 days out. That's the goal. And then everything outside of that is surplus. So I might take a $3,000 bid to get my past, because most times they're going to go LPTAs. They don't have a lot of skin in the game. They're going to give newcomers a chance. Most times people say, well, why would a contracting officer go with someone they don't know? Because after a while, companies move on to larger bids. So they've left the playing field of where you are, because everything we do, we want to see growth. We don't want to still be fishing around in this swimming pool of $10,000 and $12,000 bids, definitely 6 months to a year from now. We want to have grown on to something else. Definitely a year. Yes, question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to ask, because you made a good point. The 3 different websites, you said one will be current, one was previous, and one was active. Can you name which one's which, just so I can write?
I'm going to share with you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So our current place to find current bids, and you can find contracts, is sam.gov. When we're doing our proposals, as we grow along, we will share more and do special classes. We will have just a class on sam.gov, just a class on the other 2 I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
Sam.gov is where you come to find current bids. You can put in a lot of filters here. So that's where you're going to go to find your current bids. When you're looking for previous bids, you're going to go to FPDS. FPDS is always going to be where a previous bid or a bid that is going to be becoming expired. This is my favorite place because I can put the dates further out. I'm going to set a strategy of 90 days and look for bids that are going to expire in 90 days to do what? Build the relationship with the contracting officer. So I'm already mindful of I've got a good 90 days to start finding the contracting officer. Now, once I determine, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put in my filter of all of the bids between 100 and 250,000. I'm going to put in my state, and I'm going to put in the dates. Then I'm going to start making sure that I only put in the ones with the, I'm going to put it in, and then I'm also going to put it in with the actual agencies that are for me. So let's look at that for a second. And then we'll go back over SAM real quickly. When I'm doing FPDS, I am going to come here and I'm going to filter as much as I can to fit me. So my filter is going to look like this. First, putting in facility support services. Then I'm going to put in my filter for the amount. I'm going to hit enter. Then I'm going to put in my filter for the dates. Then I'm going to put in my filter for where I want my contract to be. So I'm going to put in my place of performance, which is going to be here. And I'm going to put in my capital. I'm going to just put in Florida. And then I'm going to hit search. Now, I didn't put in the all of the other filters because we've already done that before. I should have a filter for dollars obligated. That's going to narrow down my 100 to 250, which does what? We always want to know why we do something. What that does is I know that 250 is this threshold where the 9 times out of 10 that contracting officer can award me that contract, and you can middleman it. Exactly. And this is a sweet spot that a lot of contracts will be awarded for either no past performance or very little.
SAP.
Exactly. Simplified acquisition, 250 and under. Yeah. Also, I can find micro purchases, which are 10,000 and under. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm putting 100, a micro purchase can show up just like a simplified acquisition procedure. They both can. A micro purchase is always 10,000 and under. It is still under the simplified acquisition procedure. It's just called a micro purchase because it's the one that can be used with credit card. That's why. But it's still a simplified acquisition procedure. Hmm. And the way you know it's renewed is because if you look to see when it expired, if it's renewed, it will come up in that search. I'm not opposed to something that is expiring or that is expired a month ago. Because 70% of the bids on FPDS are renewed. 70. So whether one's getting ready to expire, has expired, but my window is going to be 90 days. Either 90 days before it expired or 90 days that it has expired. Because they may get ready to renew it. And how am I going to know that? If I build a relationship with the contracting officer, they will say, hey, I've got some bids I haven't put out yet. I'm going to send them to you. I'm going to send them to you directly in your inbox. The relationship will allow that to happen. So now I know I'm in the state of Florida and I put in facility support services and I'm looking for the department that is going to be the #1 area for me. Now, for the dates that I put in, which was March 10th, because I didn't put in the dates, I don't see Health and Human Services on here. But if I update it, I will. Let's say, for argument's sake, I had 5 agencies and the #1 isn't here. Then I'm going to go to #2, #3, #4, #5. One of them are going to be there. And then I'm going to choose that agency. Let's just say the Department of Defense was one of them. And then I'm going to work a strategy. Mondays, I'm going to go to FPDS. I'm going to put in my filters and I'm going to look up 20 contracts under FPDS. That's what I'm doing Monday between 10 and 12. Or Saturday if I work a day job, or in the evening. But what is it that I've already accomplished? I have a system. I know what I'm doing on Mondays. So I have a purpose. I'm looking for FPDS. On Tuesdays, I'm coming to sam.gov. I'm looking for current bids. I may find 5 current bids where I'll share with you how to set the filters up for SAM. And on Tuesdays, I'm doing my current bids. On Wednesdays, I'm going to acquisition.gov. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. This is all about what is coming out. So I'm going to become very familiar with acquisition.gov. I'm going to go to acquisition.gov and I'm going to procurement forecast. And then there are agencies here. So if I look for, some of them come up right away, some don't. Let's try agriculture. So if I check under agriculture, and then I look here, and it says to search anticipated procurements, please visit forecast opportunities. And I click on there. Excuse me. Now, what do I see here? I'm looking at the NAICS codes. I'm looking at the price range, what quarter, and all the information, contract, new or expiring contract number. Everything I'm looking for, and what am I going to look for? I'm looking for this sweet spot right here. 513210, that's the organization. I don't know what that is. What am I going to do? Google it. What is APHIS? Google it. Price range 25 to 250. What is that? Right on spot for me. I know that this is the anticipated quarter, and I know that it's expiring at that time frame. What am I doing? I'm going to set a long-term goal and a short-term. My short-term will be contracts 90 days out. My midterm could be 6 months to 9 months out. And my long-term is 9 months to a year. I'm working on all of that so that I have a pipeline of contracts coming in all the time. Money is coming into me all of the time. And I'm going to work on something Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, break Friday, and start over. Now, as we wrap up, this is your strategy. You have to assign a day. You have to assign the amount of work you're going to do. And you have to assign what happens if you've been working this for 6 weeks and you don't see any kind of uptick. There's something you're doing wrong. It's either your introduction letter, it's either your elevator pitch, it's either your website. But if you're not getting any bites in 90 days and you're doing in 6 weeks and you're doing all of this, something is wrong. That's how you get. Some people go, I've always told people this. I live in the DC area, which is towards New York, and I've lived in Florida. 95 is that highway. I can have my car, gas, great mindset, all the right intentions. But if I don't know what direction to get to New York, I'm going the wrong way. I'll never get there. I'm going to Florida. So it doesn't matter any of that. So you can have the right intentions and be doing all the right work. That's where the hard work comes in. Hard work doesn't mean anything if you're not using the right tools in the right direction. Doesn't mean anything. Lots of people work hard. There's construction workers and waitresses. That doesn't mean they're wealthy. Waitresses work one of the hardest people we see. But it's the type of work. And it's the wrong tools. So we want to make sure that we pivot before we dive in too far. If we don't start to see any movement in 3 weeks, we need to reevaluate what we're using as bait, because something we're using isn't working. But we don't want to wait a long time before we make that decision. That's why we set up strategies. Yeah, and we want to start setting up our strategies now. Module 4. I want you guys, for me, as an extra assignment, it wasn't in the homework, start setting up some strategies. Whether you do them or not, now get your mindset ready, as I've got to be accountable for what I do. So if I say I'm going to do it Monday between 10 and 12, and I don't do it Monday between 10 and 12, then I know I'm talking the talk. A lot of people say what they're going to do. We have our black belt and we assign a figure. And some of you might have filled out an application for our black belt. We haven't looked at them yet. But our black belt program goes into a lot of that. Every activity gets a number. And at the end of the week, you look at what did you really do. So you give yourself a score. You already know by 3 weeks if you're doing what you're supposed to. Then that stops you from doing all the talking because you're not doing anything else but talking. You're not doing the work. Okay? Hold 1 second for me. Let's see here. Okay. So now we are going to hold 1 second. Okay. Now, before we move on, yeah, thank you so much, BJ. So before we move on, we've covered 1 and 2. Now we're going to spend our time on locating the sub. We will continually work on 3 to 4 websites. Acquisition.gov. We want to know it like the back of our hand. SAM.gov. USAspending.gov and FPDS. I want you guys to take time really getting to know that. What's our second thing we're going to do? Any agency you want to work for, you should already have their budget. You should not have an agency you're looking at working for that you do not have their budget downloaded. Remember I said just look for budget fiscal year 2024. Every one of them has a budget out. It's about 119 pages, and you can download it for your agency and spend time devouring what they're looking at spending money on, with the main purpose of putting some of those keywords into your case statement, elevator pitch, website, introduction letter. So now the next thing is locating, and I think we go into finishing up the module so we can go ahead and wrap up. So now we're going to finish up. Now, when we talk about what is it that we're going to have to do, we're going to have to create a service plan. Now, that we will cover in our proposal. So you're going to have to give them normally a quality assurance. They're going to want to know at a minimum who's going to be the point of contact if there's a problem on the bid. When we talk about service plan, that could be, well, we're going to go out and let's say you're removing the rugs from the mats, you change uniforms out or change the mats out in front of offices. You're going to service it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 10 and 12. They're going to want you to put who the point of contact is if someone doesn't come. So even though you've got Jack LLC company doing 100% of the work, you're the person that they're calling. So you guys are going to learn the minimum is going to be a quality assurance. Every one of the bids are different. They may ask for a QA. They may ask for titles of your workers. So you're going to have one person in your organization that is the go-between person, that's that contractor is going to be able to contact you if there's a problem. They're not contacting the sub, they're contracting you. And you're contacting the prime. The sub, the middleman. Now, the last piece as we get ready to wrap up, and the most important part, or one of the most important parts, is how do we find the pricing, the pre-meeting, the payment, and set up the new contract. The pricing, we're going over in a second. You're going to always attend the pre-meeting if possible. If possible, until you get to know them, you need to be there. Most of them are going to be virtual. If you're in Florida and someone's in Texas and it's a $250,000 total contract, may not be worth you flying there for $4,000 a month. That depends on you. And the payment, you're going to set that up in the payment information with your subcontractor agreement. Remember, we have our non-disclosure agreement. We have our non-compete. and we have our payment plan, which is in our subcontractor. Our subcontractor agreement goes over what the scope of work is, when they get paid, all of that. You guys should have that in your Dropbox. If you don't, let us know. I'll make sure Gwendolyn sends that to Jessa. We'll get that out to you, but it should be in the Dropbox. And all your names should have been added to Module 4's Dropbox. So there are prerequisites that you have to attend. Now, let's get ready to look at what we need for two things: pricing and locating our sub. I'll have you off here in about 10 minutes. So now, what do we need to do to locate our sub, and how do we do our pricing? I'm going to go back to DSBS. Dynamic Small Business Search, or FPDS, are going to be your very best places to find workers. If we saw an FPDS, it had a list of companies that had won the contract. Why not go to them? Remember, they cannot steal your contract. They can't. The contract is with you and the government. If they're commercial or private, they can. Because private companies don't have the same obligation as the government. They can't steal it. What they can do is they can do bad, they can do, make it bad for you, but they can't steal it. The other thing you can look for with previous contractors are their CPARs. There's a CPARs report that normally they do once a year, that the government, that's how we keep up with subs, you get a grade. So a CPARs report is also listed in there, CPARS, on how well they're doing. Now, the last part is pricing. There's indirect cost, rent, utilities, administrative, salaries, office supplies. Indirect cost is our labor. Some people think you just put 20% on top of it and you just keep it moving. No, you want to have a formula for how you bid. So one of the things we have, and we'll do that when we do our, we're going to do a special business class. We have a bid calculator. Our bid calculator already factors in how much each bid should represent as a part of our insurance. So let's say you have 100%. 60 is labor, 10 is your utilities, 2% is your insurance, your general liability, 1% is your uniform. You need to have that already calculated, so that way it normally should be 50 labor, 20 profit, 30 overhead. That's kind of how you want to break it down. So if I get a middleman bid, I'm going to take the scope of work, copy and paste it, and send it to the person I'm looking to sub. They're then going to give me their price of what they're going to charge me. I then need to put a price on top of that based on what I just gave you, my direct costs and my indirect. It may not be advantageous for me to do that bid. I can't just slap 20% on it. 20% may not cover my high rent. My overhead may be high. So I need to look at each piece of my bid, and each piece should represent a piece of my utilities, rent, and admin. When I was doing facilities and I had over 200 employees, people used to ask me, how did I get myself out of doing the work so quickly? What most people do is they will factor a job as if they're doing it. They don't factor it as if they have to hire someone. So even when I did the work myself in the beginning, I still factored it in as if I were an employee of the company. If I never set aside a salary for myself, I'm always going to be the one doing the work. So you always have to factor it in, even if you're just getting started. That's the only way you're ever going to be able to pay yourself, is if you pay yourself. Even if you don't physically pay yourself, set it aside and bid on it as if you do. That's why some people were still doing facilities for 4 years, doing the work, and others weren't. That's the biggest difference. So pricing, and we're going to look at this. So this is our homework. I think we went over what Module 2's homework was. With Module 1, we're having a contract for a base year, $50K, 4.66 a month, 3-year option. Inflation is 3.3%. Subcontracting is giving you a price of $3,396. I want you to turn in what your price is. I want you to write this down for me. There's like 5 little pieces, and I want you to give me what your price is for the base year, and then the other 3 years. So it's a 4-year total contract. I want you to put down what, now the previous contract award was $4,166. I want you to let me know what you're going to charge. That's how much the price was for the previous contract. So now you know how much they charged before. And that's how we did it before. So let's say I went on, I found the previous price was $4,166. My sub is giving me $3,396. I'm going to add in my overhead. Only you know what your overhead is, cell phone, gas, whatever it is. I want you to add in your overhead. And then I want you to add in the base year. And I gave you your inflation is 3.3 for your base year and 4.0 for your subsequent years. The contract starts 2024 and goes to 2028. This is our homework for this Sunday. That's what I want you guys to focus on. So then I've got the bid calculator, but I want you guys to be able to do it on your own first, and then I'm going to give you the bid calculator. But we're gonna do it manually first, you know, with our calculators and everything. Any questions? You want me to go over it again?
Now you said, Ms. M, that it was one of those, you read these off: contract, base year, month, 3-year option, inflation rate, subcontractors giving you their price.
Right.
There was one other thing I don't see on the screen in print that you mentioned. Anybody catch that besides me?
Are you talking about what? About the indirect and direct costs?
I don't know, it was something you said, and it sounded important to me that it would be something I needed to factor into these other little variables. But
Well, I know that when we're looking at our, you know, our direct costs, so remember, they've already given us 3,000 something. We're trying to determine if we can do that bid for the LPTA, lowest price, you know, lowest price technically accepted. Just because the previous contract was 4,000 doesn't mean yours has to be. So this is where we play with it, because that's the decisions you're going to have to make. I don't know, Reggie, when you look at the recording, if you find it, let me know, because you'll be able to listen to the recording. Okay, maybe I don't know. I might have said, make sure you add in your direct and indirect costs. And I talked about the bid calculator. We have a bid calculator. You can put it in, it's in an Excel, and it adds it up for you. But we want to do it manually because we want to make sure we understand. If we go to the bid calculator, it's already done. It automatically adds it in there. And I want you guys to do it manually because you're already going to be 2 steps ahead of most people. Yes, Miss Bates?
Hi, my question is around that actual bid, because I was looking at the homework and it's you know, it's giving you the year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. And then are you saying that $3,000, 319, I think it is that what you're saying we are to use as our overhead costs, or are we calculating our own overhead costs?
Exactly. So let's go over it again. We found out that the Department of Justice has a contract that they're looking to award to us for $4,166.60 a month. That was the previous amount on that contract. The contracting officer just called us and said that I have a bid that we might have for you guys. It's a total of $250,000. And the first question I think I asked you was, how much is that a year? 50,000. It's a base year of 1 with 3 options. I've found a subcontractor and they've given me a price of $3,396 of what they're going to charge me to do exactly what the contracting officer says they need done. Can I do that bid? Am I going to only be able to charge 4,000? Am I going to be able to? So I don't want you to say yes or no. I want us to think. I want us to write it out and go over it. And that's what we're going to know when we have special classes. That's the great thing about this. If we need a special class on just this, we're going to have a special class on just this. But we won't know until we do it. And then we may just have a class, you know, just, did I answer your question, Ms. Bates?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because that's where I got confused. So that $3,100, that's not my overhead. That's what the subcontractor is saying they can do it for.
Exactly.
Then I need to figure out my overhead, look at the whole $250,000, make a decision of whether or not I can do it, like based on whether this is profitable for me.
Exactly. And we want to get an exercise of putting out what our overhead is. wow, how much is my insurance? How much is my, and that's why so many people in the facility services went out of business when I was very blessed to do well, because they didn't know how to bid. They know how to bid. They would just guess. I think it'd be about this amount. Big mistake. I knew exactly what every uniform cost. I knew, so that's how we start getting smarter than most people. Numbers mess people up every time. And this is our basic, but it messes them up. People have a fear of math, and we want to get over that. We want to be able to come up with why we did it, what we did, and how. Not just coming up, oh yeah, I can do it for that amount. How do you know you can? 200, right? Yeah. 50K for 4 years. Absolutely.
Oh,
That's our homework.
okay.
Okay. And this is a small bid based on what we're going to do for our proposal. Because I've got a proposal coming up, trying to decide who I'm going to take in there with me if anyone's interested. So it's a large one. I've not done that in years. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to, or our team is going to, and we'll talk about that later, where we have, companies come with us as subs. So now we're going to wrap up and look at our questions. Gwendolyn, can you give me the questions?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So like you said, you're gonna look at FPDS for your subs, but if you're like going to them for quotes, aren't you still like opening yourself up to like having them go around you? Because you haven't really secured the contract yet. You're just looking for quotes. Is there like a possibility of just, oh, thanks, I'm just gonna go take it now or something like that?
No, if I go to FPDS for two reasons. I'm going to go to FPS because you've already won the contract. I'm reaching out to see you to see if you need any help, which happens all the time. We had people that win in some of our students, and they won a contract, and someone that had gone after that contract, just like they had lost, they won, and they reached out to them, and they ended up being the sub for them. They can't take it because it's already awarded to me. The other thing is, if I give you the scope of work, if I look at you under FPDS and I haven't been awarded anything yet, and I just copy and paste the scope of work, you have no idea where that came from.
All right.
Yeah, you don't know where I got that information from. I could have gotten that information from a bid in Texas, from anywhere, because all I'm putting on there is this amount needs to be done. The nursing, they need staffing, they need these numbers, they need them to do this. Transportation, they need this hauled. Janitorial, they need this. All you're giving them is the scope. Gwendolyn, do you have the questions there for me?
Yep. I've sent it to you direct message.
Okay, let's see here. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, let me look at the direct message here. Oh, goodness. Hold on. Let me get this real quickly because I don't want us to run over too much. All right. Thank you. All right. So you're able to negotiate more based on the previous contract? Yes. You're able to negotiate based on the previous contract, but you still don't know if they're going to go for that or not. Previous contracts just let you know what the previous contract is. Sometimes it's a lot higher, sometimes it's a lot lower. Let's see. Can you middleman it? You can middleman anything under 250 or anything. You're just going to have to decide what percentage. For your own business, is there a minimum margin you look for? We just went over that based on your overhead. Lowest bidder wins. We went over that before. Let's see. Where's the bid calculator? We're going to have the bid calculator when we do the more complicated bid, but we want to get our minds thought on how do we come up with our own overhead. So are we able to negotiate? We went over that, went over the contract. Now, will we also want us to complete the worksheet from lesson 1? Yes, the worksheet with lesson 1 just says you've read and understood the FAR. Will you post access to the non-disclosure? Yes, the non-disclosure and all of that should be in your Dropbox. Let us know if it's not there. The subcontractors we use, do we have to be set up to do government contracting? No, they do not have to be. They do not have to be set up for that. Nope. You can use Google, you can use Indeed, you can use Upworks, any of those. Thank you. I have another meeting. Thank you. Were we supposed to get the previous homeworks emailed back to us? You did not get your previous email back. We put that in a folder. We just let you know that we received it, and that's how we give that back to you. The PDFs are in module 1. The PDFs are in, they should be in, Jessa should attach them. Let me know if you don't see them. There should be in the module 4, and then she may have put them under one module. So check the school platform and on the actual Dropbox. At the end of it, you guys will get the Dropbox for everything. We just give it to you like that, trickle it down so that way you don't kind of overwhelm yourselves. I think that's it. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you so much. Any other questions before we go over? Please take your time on this. This is where we get started. Number 2, you'll receive the recording as soon as we get off in about 2 hours. It's got to download. Number 3, we have our check-in on Thursday at 10. Same number, same everything. We'll put that out there again on Facebook. And then I'm doing a special class on TCA, which is Corporate Transparency Act, LLCs and all that. It'll be from 2, don't quote me, I think it's either 2 or 2:30 to 3. I think it's an hour. And that you will receive the link for. I am doing a workshop. I didn't broadcast it. Some of you signed up for my Dream Year 2024 workshop. It is this Saturday. I didn't put it out on Facebook or anything. I just did an email. And anyone that is interested, it is $47. It's for 2 hours, and it's to set you up with all the things that I do behind the scenes. So we give you all that information. Big part is setting up your goals, like we talked about. How do you get to the next level? So if you're interested, then just shoot us an email. Hey, I'm interested in the workshop. It's $47. It will be recorded. It's this Saturday. And I go over setting you up for the year to get to that. So if you're interested, I didn't do a big blast on that one, but anyone that is, some people did join and some people didn't. Only for Crack the Gov Code, we've extended it if they're interested, but it closed on January the 6th for anyone that wanted to be in it. So, okay, if you're interested, then just go to, okay. So if you're interested, I'm going to put the link in the email I sent out to you guys today. Okay, and everyone's receiving their workbook for the Dream Shop 2024 to get your dream year set up. You'll receive the workbook on Thursday. So we're helping you set up your business, org chart, all of that, because that's what messes up behind the scenes stuff. Okay, the link will be in the email. I'm only going to offer it up. We'll do it like up until 12 midnight. So let's make sure, because we got to get all the workbooks up and so we got to make sure we do it. So I'll send that out when we send the recording. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. And Happy New Year again. And hi, Lucinda. Hi, dear. Hi, PJ. All right. So I will see you guys real soon. And I'll send that email recording. And we'll, the next thing we have will be on Thursday, our check-in. Our special workshop for the CTA will be Thursday. And the big workshop for the Dream Workshop year is Saturday. You'll receive that link if you want to sign up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.